introduction, I was using the real Ibanez Tube Screamer TS10, and I've been thinking, like, is there still a reason to keep these things around? And I can think of a few reasons why you shouldn't immediately sell your drive pedals. So I think drive pedals are the one thing where it does really make quite a big difference to have this kind of tacit, like, actual feel of using the thing. I also think there might be significant differences, like there's not tons of components in these things, but I feel like the tolerances could make a real difference. So even though line 6, for example, have a tube screamer in there, it's an 808 variant, this is a TS10 variant, which is slightly different, and across 808 variants even, presumably there's quite a lot of variation. So the thing is, with drive pedals, I think there are subtle nuances that you may be actually thinking you notice, and even if you only think you notice them, then that makes enough of a reason that I think that they're worth keeping around. The other thing is, what about when the Helix is no longer around, if it's been superseded or whatever? Maybe you're going to regret not having access to one or two kind of your favourite drive pedals. So for me, I don't have anywhere near as many drive pedals as I used to, but I do keep a few around. For me, I think there is an argument for sure. I could be wrong, maybe you feel differently, but keeping these around for certain things, to me, makes a lot of sense, especially if they seem to be going up in value, like that one, or they seem to work with pretty much everything like that one. I don't know, let me know your thoughts. On with the video. Okay, so today the experimentation begins, or continues. Doesn't begin, I've already been doing this, but I did that video where I've kind of realised for myself that using a real drive pedal live with the HX Stomp actually gets me access to an additional kind of 3 variations of gain staging, right? And it made me think, okay, let's give this another go today. So I've got an Ibanez TS10 down on the floor here. Now, you might have heard of the Ibanez TS10. It's a bit of a, I don't know, an overhyped, maybe necessarily hyped pedal. It does happen to be my favourite tube screamer, but I think you can kind of get in the ballpark with any tube screamer. It does something a tiny little bit different, and it may not even be preferable for you. So I'm not saying go out and run and get a TS10. I think some of the prices that you pay for them, for what is not the most reliable pedal in the world, may not be worth it. Let me know in the comments if you're one of these people who is a big fan of the TS10, like I am. I'm just saying, I'm not sure it's the best way to spend your money. At the front of this chain, I've got a tube screamer, the gain at 5, the tone at 5.7, and the level at 7.5. I'm going into my dual jazz tone preset, or dual 2 jazz tone, which is an AC30 and a Princeton, right? And I've just got the TS10 plugged in front. So without any drive pedal, it's like a fairly dark, compressed tone. I kick on the TS10, we get this really thick. So I feel like that's maybe got slightly less gain. I'm not going to go super deep into try and tone matching these. I think it can be done, but it's going to require using more than one block most likely. But that's the HX Stomp Screamer. This is John of the future. I'm just going back and now editing this, and if I stop kind of keeping track of what is what and kind of labelling them, I actually find it really difficult to keep track of what I'm actually hearing. And that to me shows me that as a listener, probably you might find the same thing. Again, let me know in the comments if you can hear a clear distinction, but like these aren't the same drive model. This is a TS10, as I say, and the Helix model is the Screamer 808. Now I think probably the similarities that you can hear between the two might be the equivalent of what this sounds like next to an actual 808. What I'm saying is, I don't think there's that much in it. So if you're finding that you're never using these things, then maybe you can sell them. But the benefit for me that I'm finding is that it does enable me to have 3 kind of extra gain stages alongside my normal snapshots, which is kind of useful, right? Or am I being stupid? I don't know. Tube Screamer. Got a bit more brightness going on, I think, with the TS10. HX Stomp. HX Stomp, now Tube Screamer, TS10. Now HX Stomp. So it's not like miles off, it's like there's like a subtle difference in tone, I think, and you could probably get this kind of response when you're trialing between different Tube Screamers, right? They all kind of have a tiny little bit of a difference in vibe. Now, this is in front of a driven. Now the TS10. HX Stomp. HX Stomp. TS10. HX Stomp. Other thing to bear in mind when you're kind of experimenting with this stuff, so for me it's kind of close enough that I think on a gig you're not necessarily going to notice the difference. The difference that there is though is that I could lean down easily and make changes to a TS10 on the gig or a real drive pedal, and that could actually be a real benefit, because on a gig what I'm finding is that typically the drive settings that I've got set up at home have a bit more drive than I actually need on stage, so I'm making those adjustments. And again, like I said, that being able to actually switch it on and off does give me access to 3 additional kind of tones that I didn't have without the real drive pedal, because I'm already using 3 snapshots. So I think there is an argument for actually doing this. Again, people have said that they do this, you know, Greer Lightspeed seems to be a common one, Protein Overdrive, which I think is the Nobel's
ODR1 on one side and the blues breaker modified on the other side. People presumably might be using tube screamers for this sort of thing as well. Myself, I use the Dude. Let me know your comments what you'd like to use. The Chase Bliss Automatone came up a few times because that's obviously a super versatile drive pedal. The one kind of caveat to this kind of test, when you do this yourself, you're actually getting a slightly less accurate version of what the HX Stomp would possibly be doing if you have the Tube Screamer first in the chain. So if you have the Tube Screamer first in the chain, then it would necessarily drop the impedance slightly and you'd get this kind of effect. So here is the HX Stomp with the TS10 in the way. So you actually lose the benefit of the impedance circuit on the HX Stomp, so you'll possibly find that it's actually brighter once you actually plug something in between your guitar and your HX Stomp. The reason being for that is that the HX Stomp is no longer dropping the impedance in accordance with the first block in the chain. So that's something to be aware of when you're A-Bing this. You know, that's a thing where it's not as accurate as it actually could be because you're interfering with the test by putting a pedal in the way. You could put it in the loop to mitigate this, but then you don't get the impedance drop that the actual pedal would give you. So it's a little bit difficult to test this. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Is it worth taking a drive pedal on a gig? I think for me, the answer is yes.